They are probably going to hate me for this. You know, if you ask me candidly, behind closed doors, do I believe that there are natural cures that the establishment doesn't want the lay person to know about, or even their doctors? At this point in my career, I would say yes. And in this video, I want to share why exactly that is. Hey guys, I'm Dr. Alex Heyne, board licensed doctor of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, and author of the health book, Master the Day. So, let's get in. You might be surprised. Whether you're seeing this video because you've watched all of my videos or you know me personally, my dream as a kid was always to go to traditional medical school. You know, I've always had a deep passion for medicine, and I was always the kid who was reading books on the intersection between medicine, traditional folklore, like traditional healers, as well as mysticism and spirituality. You know, I was obsessed with reading Netter's anatomy book and just looking at the anatomy and the striations of the muscles and veins and arteries where I didn't know veins and arteries were. I would read stories of traditional Native American healers and shamans and the traditional herbs that were used and why did they use those herbs. And when I was a teenager, I would grow lots of these medicinal herbs in my parents' garden in Connecticut, and then I would make traditional teas out of these. All the while though, it was obvious to me always that I would go to conventional medical school. And from there, I would go into some kind of integrative specialty. I didn't know how, I didn't know where, but I knew that this is where I would end up. And then I got sick. In a weird twist of fate, those chronic GI issues that I saw all the best GI specialists for, all those Ivy League trained physicians, and when none of them were any use whatsoever, one night I had this dream. And in this dream, I'm being interviewed at the medical school interview, one of the rounds of interviews. The woman looks at me, she says, "So tell me, why do you want to become a doctor?" And I remember gave this impassioned speech, this talk, right, from my heart. And they both sort of looked at each other and they were like, "That's it? Are you sure you want to be here?" And I woke up from this dream, suddenly feeling very uncertain about my path going forward. Now clearly that dream was a mirror of my subconscious that was suddenly feeling, "Are you sure?" Because how could I possibly go into the medicine that didn't help me when I was going to go into general internal medicine, when I had seen all of the internists, I had seen all of the gastroenterologists, I had seen the general practitioners, and none of it was helpful until I saw a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine, and the herbal formula he gave me resolved those symptoms in 30 days. And while I wasn't cured of a decade-long digestive illness in 30 days, none of the other specialties of real medicine, the real doctors, got me any of those results. And I went home thinking, how could I possibly dedicate the next 10 years of my life to becoming a doctor with this cognitive dissonance in my heart and in my mind? Now let's talk about 3 truths that I think are very important to share here. Truth number 1 is that there are simple, low-cost formulas that can heal, often as well as many medications that have several $100 million of R&D behind them. One famous doctor in our traditional lineage in traditional Chinese medicine was a man named Dr. Tian Ba Wei. And Tian Ba Wei means 8 flavor Tian. Now, this doctor was famous for being a traditional herbal doctor and who was posted up near a local hospital at the time. Now, Dr. Tian lived to be almost 100 years old, and all this man did for 70 continuous years was see patients all day long. And the rumor was that this man became so famous because he was seeing 300 patients per day because he was so renowned with his skill in pulse diagnosis and herbal prescribing. This is the main way I practice in my clinic today. Dr. Tian became famous because people who were waiting for surgeries would come see him as a last resort while they were waiting on the surgical list. And Dr. Tian was able to prevent so many surgeries that he ended up getting this famous reputation and a news article written about him. Folklore-ish stories aside, and old wives' tales aside, I have seen patients that, like Dr. Tian said, these simple formulas are very cheap and they're inexpensive and they can be life-saving. And we've seen this in my clinic many times, people who no longer needed surgery and whose physicians, career physicians, said they have never seen results like that in all the decades they'd practiced their specialty. I have seen dozens of people in the last year with gallbladder attacks, landing them in the hospital needing morphine, who through traditional herbal formulas no longer need a gallbladder removal. Women who've had cervical dysplasia, a potentially precancerous condition after the pap smear revealed, who were told they're going to need the LEAP procedure multiple times that will potentially irreversibly affect their fertility, take a traditional herbal formula for 4 to 6 months, and the next pap smear comes back completely clear. I have had women come in with rare clotting disorders and other health issues that they were told you will absolutely need medication if you plan on getting pregnant, who were off their medication, taking traditional Chinese herbs, and got pregnant. And if you don't believe me, we have all of these on camera recorded, these patient testimonials, on my website. Just go to dralexheyne.com or search on my YouTube channel here for some of the patient success stories. We have a couple of them uploaded right here, their full story. What this has shown me is that what these traditional doctors knew still is life-saving, still can shockingly sometimes outperform medications with $500 million of research and development. The fact that that is not front page news is literally staggering. The second truth is that there often is an alternative to pills and surgery, regardless of whether or not you're a physician or specialist. Whatever smart person you're talking to tells you that there isn't. A lot of the time, misinformed but well-intended. They're genuinely trying to help you with that medication, but they do not know there are alternatives or integrative options that work as well. Now, someone I think about a lot is a patient of mine, Elisa. Elisa was told because of a really bad pap smear that 2/3 of her cervix was covered in precancerous cells. She was going to need to do something called the LEAP procedure, which is an electrical surgical procedure, pretty barbaric. It's awful to even think about. Now, she was told by the gynecologist that she was going to likely need to do that multiple times. It would have a likely permanent but unknown effect on her fertility, and being 26 or so, she didn't want that procedure to be done. I treated Alyssa with an internal medicine formula for about 4 months, and I said, listen, wait 6 months, get another pap smear. Worst case scenario, you need the surgery. And then we did our best. Best case scenario, I've seen it prevent the surgery. Next pap smear, came back 100% clear. And her career gynecologist said in all his years practicing medicine in that specialty, he had never seen that and never seen that quickly.
I had 2 abnormal pap smears just at my regular appointment. So I was sent to get a cervical biopsy to find out what was causing the abnormality. And then the biopsy came back with cervical intraepithelial dysplasia. So basically precancerous cells it with stage 2 to 3, I believe. The doctor at the time recommended a series of things that were all, in my opinion, really aggressive and abrasive treatment options. One was a cervical biopsy and one was some kind of laser electrosurge. He said it's not guaranteed it would work the first time, like they removed the abnormal cells and then it may come back. So I left really kind of shaken after that appointment because to me, like, you can't even guarantee it's gonna work. And it's very aggressive and they do sedate you for it and it's in the operating room and, you know, it's a hefty thing. Sad part is no alternatives were offered. So I'm lucky that I was pointed in your direction, but for those other women, you know, if this video helps one, then I did my job.
And final uncomfortable truth number 3, I think it's possible that the medical establishment doesn't want people to actually know about these. And frankly, maybe doesn't even want their doctors to know about these. In the way that if you've watched the documentaries on a lot of the painkillers and the opioid crisis, those doctors were told emphatically, these are safe, they're non-addictive, they're better than the current medications. They believe that. They weren't prescribing them because they're evil people or for kickbacks, though some of the higher ups would, but they legitimately believed because of the salesman, the pharmaceutical salesman, this was a better medication until it wasn't proven to be that way. There's a great story I love about this man who wrote a book called Back to Eden. And in this book, he talks about being a traditional folk healer. He learned herbs from Native Americans locally, and he basically just practiced this as a sort of hobby. It was sort of a passion he did. And he tells the story in certain chapters on the treatment of cancer. And he tells the story of one woman who had a kind of intestinal cancer where she couldn't pass any bowel movements. So she went into surgery, and when the surgeon opened her intestines, he found it covered with tumors. He just sewed her up and sent her home to die. Now, her husband begged the man to treat her. And he said, I can't promise anything, but maybe I can help alleviate the pain. And so this man treated her through various traditional methods. And this woman actually ended up living. The point was that he wrote a letter to one of the cancer societies that was forming during that time. He wrote a letter saying, these formulas from these traditional natives, I've seen these effects. This woman was sent home to die by her surgeon. She's alive now, 20 years later. You should research these and study these more, please. He wasn't saying he had a cure for cancer. He said, just please study these. They can be life-saving. And he said, they returned the letter saying they weren't interested in what he had to share. If any of you have been around for the last 4 or 5 years since COVID, you've probably formed your own opinions about what the medical establishment is like. But at this point, I think I genuinely believe that there's a lot that is known that they would like you not to know, because there's a lot more money made making sure you don't know that these simple formulas, for example, exist. So that's what I have for you today, guys. Some brutal medical truths that'll probably get me in trouble, but this channel's for you. It's not for the medical establishment. It's to help you, because I wish this existed 15 years ago when I was sick. Now, don't forget, I work with a limited number of new patients in my clinic in Los Angeles, or virtually via telemedicine. Just go to dralexheyne.com/clinic, or the info box below this video has clinic phone number and the email if you guys want to reach out directly. I've also put together a root cause quiz if you're curious about symptoms you're having, the organs they're coming from, the physiological pathways they originate in. This is according to traditional Chinese medicine. Your symptoms are probably coming from this. First link below this video, download that and check it out. And then before you go, I have another great video on some brutal truths like this right up here.